Fantastic Four Life Story, issue number 3. We are entering the groovy age of the 80s, baby. And with it, we get probably the best issue of the run so far. I think this solidifies something I've been experiencing a lot in my comic book viewing lately, and that is, I think Johnny Storm is slowly becoming a favorite character of mine. I've always loved him. I've always been a fan of Johnny. But this just makes me go, oh yeah, this is why I like him. This is the stuff that makes me happy with Johnny Storm. So, it's the 80s. It's 84. Reed is working with Tony Stark. They're a bunch of older men now. They're talking to a new administration. You know the one I mean. The Reagan administration. Like, hey, we got a defense force for Galactus. And they're just kind of like, this looks great. We love this defense force. It's actually really cool. But we want to use it and point it at the Russians and the Soviet Union because we're in a Cold War, and nuclear launch and the fallout from that is probably very plausible. So that's what we're going to do with this thing. Okay, Reed? He's like, that's dumb. Why would we fight ourselves when the threat is out there? But bruh, it's a Cold War. They kind of storm out. Tony's like, dude, let me talk to them. We'll get everything figured out. But we see Reed's got work he's got to get back to. So he kind of just leaves, leaving Tony on the White House lawn. We cut to Johnny Storm entering a cop shop. Everyone's kind of excited to see him there. He's like, wow, it's Johnny Storm. This guy's cool. And we see that he's like, okay, well, I'm here for a reason. Johnny Storm is kind of like narrating everything throughout this book. And I'm not going to get into everything he says, but I think it's a really important thing that he's talking about here. It's like, everybody's telling me to grow up. You know, everybody is just looking at me and they still see this kid, even though I'm pushing on 40 years old. Everyone still tells me, like, you can't act immature, you can't have that stuff anymore, you can't be the life of the party. But he still thinks, you know, we're put on this earth for a short amount of time, whatever that is, we should have fun doing it. We'll come back to that theory at the end here. But he realized that he is in this cop shop because he is picking up his nephew who got arrested. Franklin is now in a private school. He had an episode where his powers kind of went crazy. He hurt some people. He got arrested from it. But we see Johnny, like, burns up the actual, like, information about, like, his arrest so his parents won't see it, and he just takes him home. I think it's very cool. So we cut to Reed and Ben's apartment somewhere in New York. Johnny shows up with Franklin. Everyone's kind of having a good time, getting chummy. We see, like, the Fantastic Four isn't really together anymore, but things are kind of, like, being pushed aside. And one of the other reasons that Johnny is there, aside from getting Franklin a ride there, because that's what he does for Sue, is that he is serving Reed with the divorce papers. So the divorce is officially going to be going through, and Reed and Sue are going to be separated. And Johnny feels kind of bad giving Reed the papers because he's about to go on television right before, like, a big thing he's going to be talking about to some people. So, is it Letterman? I can't tell who this is. It Letterman or somebody? It looks like a guy. It looks like a random guy. I think it's supposed to be like Letterman he's talking to. And he goes on there. He's also meeting with Jose Santini. And he's like a tech genius. And basically, like, the conversation is coming about, like, yeah, man, we were, like, so close to, like, nuclear annihilation the other day because somebody had, like, a misfire of one of, like, the protocols and everything was really bad. So we were literally, like, one bad decision away from nuclear fallout and everything would be destroyed. And you see that Jose Santini's like, this is how bad everything's going. I have a plan to fix some shit. Well, Reed over here is worried about space. Like, what's going on over there? But Reed's kind of, like, out of it, and he's like, I was wrong about Sue. I thought she'd come back to me. Maybe I'm wrong about Galactus being our biggest threat. Maybe it is the Soviet Union. So he's starting to, like, kind of, like, back up and be a part of that idea. Like, maybe I do need to see the bigger picture. As they're doing that, Johnny meets with his sister because they are talking at a conference about world peace and, like, saving the world and speaking on that stuff. She is still with Namor. I love that Namor's just in, like, a loose-fitting suit. He's showing his chest. He's not wearing any shoes. It looks great. I love Namor. I love that character. I like when they're together. And I think something really cool about this is just they really set up Johnny Storm to be a really interesting character. And it's something that I know as, like, a young man, I've always connected to Johnny Storm more than some other, like, characters that have been introduced in Marvel Comics. I think in this particular scene and then one at the end I really enjoy with Johnny. So we see that Sue gives, like, a really moving speech about, like, saving the world and how we can stop all this bad stuff from happening and unite our people together. and Johnny's going to be giving a speech, but the whole time that Sue is giving her speech, he's listening to his Walkman. He's just having fun, hanging out there, just dancing. I love this picture of him. I love that he's in like this really bright pink shirt with the buttons loose, and it's amazing. Even though he's going on 40 years old, he's still like the young, jovial kid who everyone just thinks like, oh, this guy doesn't take anything seriously. So he's going to go up to say his speech, and as he stands up there, he's like, whether it's the Cold War, whether it's Galactus, I'm on both sides of this thing. It doesn't matter what happens, whatever we do, the world is doomed. We can't save it. We literally can't save it. Nothing we can do is going to change anything. We're boned. We're done for. So I guess the point of my speech is enjoy it while it lasts. And everyone's like, dude, why would you say that stuff? He's talking to Spider-Man for a bit, and we just see that people are just like, what is wrong with this kid? Why is he saying these things? Namor and Sue are kind of like, have ideas on how to save stuff, involving like the water and the oceans and oxygen and stuff. But Johnny is still that kid, and we see that he's talking to this man who, did they say what his name is? I can't remember, but he's this kind of like bigger aide for one of the governments here. And he's saying like, Johnny, I understand your need to say that. I think, it's a young man's idea that the world could be doomed. But I'm telling you now, like, I've suffered a lot. I was in like a concentration camp for 3 years, and I thought all hope was gone. But even through the darkness, there are still days that shine. And I walked out there and I saw death, and between the death sentences, I saw this stuff, and I think there's a lot of life between death, and there's stuff we should live for. And maybe the nihilistic view that you have right now, well, it's a young man's ambition, should also be something positive that we should look at. I really like that. I think that's a very strong understanding, is just there's a lot of bleakness in the world, and maybe you're right, maybe we are doomed, but between that, there's still stuff to live for, right? We should try to live for those things. And you see Johnny just like, I guess so. That's very powerful. Very powerful. So this Jose Santini guy talks to Rake, and he's like, I got it. We'll do it. Everything's going to work fine. Trust me. We'll take down the Soviet Union, but I want to be able to pick the scientists I'm going to be working with. And who's one of the scientists that he wants to work with? It is none other than Victor Von Doom. So he's released from custody to come with Santini over to the country of Latveria. And this is where we realize that the mind of Dr. Santini is not actually that. He is the Mad Thinker. And he reveals himself to there. You're like, Dr. Doom and the Mad Thinker working together to save the world in a sense. Very cool stuff to deal with. Then we see Johnny just kind of like going over the next little bit of his life. Reagan gets another like administration, he gets a second term. We see that Reed becomes kind of like obsessed with artificial intelligence. He wants to work on that. Sue is still having fun. You don't really like have the Fantastic Four together anymore, and there's like some tragedy in that. And Ben is kind of like longing to have those worlds come back where he can be a part of like the big family again. Again, a very cool thing to see. We're seeing two different worldviews here, from like Johnny, who's like, it's all over. I don't think anything's worth fighting for. And Ben, who's like, I missed the golden days. I think that's a really cool thing to see. So we get some scenes with Victor Von Doom and the Mad Thinker just figuring out how they're going to save the world and bring it, and how to stop every like thing from happening. They're both on the side that Galactus is coming, whether it's actually Galactus or just like a threat. You get it. And basically the Mad Thinker's idea is, well, maybe if we destroy the world ourselves, it'll stop things from coming. So he's kind of like on the side of letting the Cold War play out. We realize that Santini does sign on with Reed, and they kind of like build this idea of the Star Wars project. So in this timeline, these characters that we know from the Marvel Universe are responsible for the Star Wars defense system. A very cool thing to add in here. Again, it goes without saying, but I love the idea of like giving the Fantastic Four like the political stuff to do. Like they're working heavy with like the governments of the US and the Soviet Union, the Cold War stuff. I think it works really well. It just works really well. So we see that in NORAD and in the USSR, there is this idea that some missiles were fired. It could be nothing, it could be something, but it looks like we are literally about to see something bad happen. Because the Star Wars defense system picked up something, and nothing is looking good. Everything's lighting up in the Soviet Union. The Cold War's over. We are literally launching our missiles right now, and everyone is freaking out. Sue's like, we gotta do something, but Namor's like, we can't. It's too late. The world's over. We can start over. Sue's worried about Franklin, but Namor's like, we can start again, like have another kid. And she storms out. She just leaves him there. The Fantastic Four are on the scene. Sue eventually shows up to help them after finding Franklin. The Fantastic Four is together again, and all of the Marvel heroes of the time period are there to help them too, and they're all in their classic designs. So the Fantastic Four is in like the white and the blue. Symbiote Spider-Man's there. Silver Centurion Tony Stark is there, and ugly-looking Thor's there. They're all fighting to take out these missiles from literally destroying the world, and it looks like they saved the day. But one slipped through the radar, and how are we going to get it? We can't really stop it, but there's only one man who's fast enough with the capability of hopefully stopping that from happening. It's Johnny Storm, and he blasts into the space. He blasts into the skies, just ready to catch this last missile from destroying a part of civilization. And this is why I love Johnny, because I think the narration in these last couple of pages here are really, really powerful. So he's basically like, I've been told to grow up my whole life, become this thing, and maybe I did. Maybe despite my best efforts, I did grow up, and he's like, I did, and I assure you it's the most dangerous thing you will ever do. And then he's kind of like, he absorbs all the radiation from this missile. It's done. It's done. Like, it's not going to destroy anyone, but he stopped it from happening. And we get a beautiful page that I absolutely adore this. This might be one of my favorite things to come out of comics in a long while. So Johnny absorbed the radiation, and he gives us some narration. Life is a party, and the key to being a good party guest is to not stay too long. No one wants you hanging around while they're washing the dishes. It's better to be the guy who leaves after an hour or two while he's still interesting. The guy who leaves. And he's dead. Johnny dies in issue 3 of the Fantastic Four life story. And I'm just like, what? What? His flame is out. Johnny is actually dead. He was 40 years old. We see that the Mad Thinker and Victor Von Doom are no longer on speaking terms. We cut to the just 3 years later when Johnny has been deceased. And the Fantastic Four are kind of together again. Everyone's just mourning his death. Ben feels bad. Reed feels bad. Sue feels bad. And I love it. I love it. I love it. And then we get more narration from Johnny. If I have to die someday, which I imagine I will, I hope people won't think that I stayed too long. That I left while I was still interesting, while people were still asking, who is that guy? But even if you leave the party unnoticed, that's okay, because the party carries on without us. Gee willikers. I love those last statements from Johnny. I think those are very powerful, and those are very Johnny Storm, just like, hey, I'm going to go out on my own terms. I'm going to go out when I want to. And even if I don't want to overstay my welcome, pretty much is what he's saying. He's like, I imagine when I die, I hope it's when people are like, this guy was cool. This guy was interesting. Maybe he grew up in the end, but he was still an interesting fella. And I love that that's what we're seeing here. So, in Fantastic Four Life Story, issue number 3, 1986, Johnny Storm dies. And it is powerful and raw and one of the most intense things to come out of this book. I loved this issue. I love these final moments of Johnny because this is the character personified, and it's every reason I love him. You don't have to grow up to be mature. You don't have to be mature to grow up. You just are who you are. It's powerful. It's raw. It's great stuff. And the party carries on without us. Damn, Mark Russell, you really got me with that statement, man. I adore this book. I'm impressed with every second of this. It really hit home, and I'm glad this had some impact. I wasn't expecting it to get so intense, but it's good. It's good. I really like this. Oh, man. It's great to see the Fantastic Four getting some great representation. It really is. I think if you are a fan of these characters, this is what we've missed, and this is exactly what I love about these characters. So, Fantastic Four Life Story, issue number 3. I am going to give a 10 out of 10. Bow, bow. It's such a good book. Such a good book. So thank you guys for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and I will catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe. Good luck.